Hi, I'm the math guy, Steve. Let's talk about factoring. So, how we factor something like this is we always want to be careful and note that the first rule of factoring is fog. Watch this. Factor out the GCF. That's the greatest common factor. So, let's see. Let's look at these three terms and see what they have in common. Well, I note they both have an x. Actually, they both have at least two x's. So, we'd say, well, the GCF would be an x squared. So if the GCF is x squared, let's take the x squared off of each. If I take an x squared out of each, let's see what's left. If I take two of the x's off of here, we have an x squared left over. If I take an x squared off of this one, we have a positive 3x left over. If I take an x squared off of this one, we have a positive 2 left over. So always factor out the GCF first. Fog. Next, we say, well, can I factor this further? So how we factor a trinomial like this, or three terms, is by saying, well, can I set up my double set of parentheses? We call that double bubble. Now, we need to have two terms in each, and we want the first two terms to multiply to give us x squared. So we put an x and an x. That'll give us x squared. Then we look at the last two terms. They need to multiply to give me this last one, a 2. Now, usually we use whole numbers. So we say, well, what two numbers multiply to give me 2? Whole numbers or integers. And that'll be just a 1 and a 2. So we put a 1 there and a 2 there. Now we do need to know that, okay, this middle number, they need to add to give me that, or combine. And so yeah, they do, a 1 and a 2. If I put a positive 1 and a positive 2, that combines to give me a positive 3. And lastly, we need to note that, okay, this x squared, it just comes on down. Moseys on down. We put an x squared in front. So we factored it. And we're done. Don't forget, you gotta check it. So how we check it is by saying, okay, if I multiply this back out, do I get back to the original? Let's try it. So first, x plus 1 times x plus 2, we'll multiply that part first. So go the opposite direction, or the opposite way we went the first time. Okay, if I multiply this out, let's see, x times an x, that's x squared. Okay, we FOIL it, you know, what you put on your baked potato, you know, x squared, x times 2, that's 2x. Okay, a 1 times an x, that's a 1x. And then lastly, 1 times 2 gives me positive 2. And then if we combine these two middle terms, we'll see, yes, that's x squared plus 3x plus 2. Okay. Looks good. Now, don't forget, we had that x squared out in front. And so to finally finish checking, we'll say, well, let's multiply the x squared times everything inside of the parentheses. X squared times x squared, x to the 4th. X squared times 3x, 3x cubed. X squared times 2 is 2x squared. And note, that's exactly what we started with. And so factoring isn't that difficult, as long as you do it step by step. And always remember, math is everywhere.